Okay, excellent. Welcome, everyone. My name is Rochelle Matthews, and I'm the Secretary of Code. And I will be calling this meeting to order at 11 a.m. on Saturday, October 24th, 2020. A few business items. In the chat, you'll see that I posted a link to the code to our agenda and to the board reports. I posted it at 10:57, so if you just scroll up, you should see the link and it'll take you directly to our website where you can follow the meeting's agenda. Okay, so now I will be adopting the minutes from the 2019 AGM. So I need someone from the board to adopt the minutes. Thank you, Kim Erin. And I need someone to second. Thank you, Matt. All right, all those in favor of the board? Excellent. If there's any action items or questions or comments you have about the 2019 AGM, please type them in the chat and Matt will convey that over to me. All right, motion carried. Next, we would like to adopt the AGM agenda for 2020. So I need someone from the board to adopt that. Thank you, Sherry Ann. And can I get someone to second from the board? Thank you, Jesse. Okay, all those in favor? All right, motion carried. All right, I'd like to now introduce Jane DeLuzio as our president, and she will chair the remainder of the meeting.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our AGM. I think this is the largest attendance at an AGM that we've ever had with Zoom, more than on Facebook, and not always more than at actual live conferences, but more. So we're going to begin our agenda, and we are going to begin by asking our current membership chair, Jolynn Soinberger, to give us just a quick update in the year of the AGM on membership. Jolynn?
You literally just joined, Jane, so give me 1 second.
Okay, no
I
problem.
just promoted her to panelist.
Thank you, Matt. It's our very first Zoom AGM, so we will stumble along together and enjoy ourselves. I'm just going to go to gallery view here and wave at all these people that I can see. So exciting. And Jolynn, as soon as she's ready, you are on the agenda to do your membership.
And don't forget to unmute yourself, Jolynn.
Oh, there. Sorry, I couldn't see anybody. Can you guys see me?
We can see you and we
Yep.
can hear you, and you have the floor to do your membership update immediately.
Oh, okay. Membership was great this year. So exciting. So the main things were boards by school-wide memberships for the whole school boards. And then we just had a new one, Graham, with Ottawa Catholic District School Board. So this is, I think, the third school board that has bought memberships for their secondary teachers for drama and dance, so which has been super, super exciting. So I think this will really kind of launch code for the next couple of years and hopefully help support with other things. So that's really been the kind of the highlights. Everything else has been going really well. I know Tessa's been working really hard with the memberships, trying to get on the website for school-wide, really promoting that and making access to that. So I think those are probably the two main highlights.
If people want to look at Jalynn's report at the link that is in the chat at the beginning, I don't know if you have it in front of yourself, Jalynn, but if you do, can you tell us the membership in the number at the beginning of in October 2019, and then the number in July 2020?
Oh, sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, so I think it's in the report, and we'll move on. Thanks, Jalynn. If anyone has any other questions, and if you find that, Jalynn, while I'm moving on, you can just put the number of members at the beginning of this AGM year and at the end. Thank you. Carry on. And do I wait till I'm speaker? Okay, thank you. So the next person, or first person from the executive at our AGMs, the executive only take time to do their reports publicly, highlights from them. All of the board members have written reports, and again, they're all at the link that is provided for you in the chat. So the first person who's going to report to us now is our past president, Kim Snyder.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. It's nice to see people's faces and see people's names as well, and see everyone here. I'm going to just offer some highlights from my report, which is included and posted on the website. And I'm going to spend most of my time highlighting from some of the committees that I'm involved in. But before I do that, just a couple of general highlights. So the role of the past president is really to act as counsel and a liaison to other organizations that CODE works with. And that's been the bulk of the work that I've done this past year. So that's included connecting with faculties of education to promote CODE and our workshops and conference at OISE UT and York, connecting with OTF and Ian Pettigrew of OTF to get information out through subject associations about our various events and our resources. And also attending events and representing CODE at events like, Wayne Fairhead's tribute at the NTS Festival in late 2019. And a really exciting partnership that's come about this year, which stemmed from our 2019 conference, is with the Stratford Festival. And so in February of 2020, before the world changed, Jane and I traveled to the Stratford Festival to present to the teaching artists there. And those are the artists who work with teachers in schools. And that was a really great connection to make, and one that we're really happy to continue going forward with the Stratford Festival. I also represented CODE at a number of ArtSeco meetings. For those not familiar with ArtSeco, that's the group of arts consultants and instructional leaders in Ontario. And so certainly when school closed in March, it was really important to connect with ArtSeco to find out how we could support teachers as they continued to teach drama and dance online. So what came of that was a resource that was developed and distributed throughout boards of adapted resources. So we had a team of volunteers of the CODE board who looked at the existing resources on our site and made adaptations of how those could be done in an online format. And I want to thank Jesse, Bobby, Tracy, and Megan, who helped to create those elementary resources, as well as to all the board members who contributed ideas for secondary teachers. And I think that those were really well received and appreciated. We've also tried to support more online in terms of PD and resources. There are two Facebook groups. They're not code Facebook groups, but they are Facebook groups that help to support drama and dance teachers online. And those are called the Drama Education Resource Sharing Group and the Ontario Dance Teacher Distance Education Cooperative. And both of those groups are available for members and non-members to join. And we've recently had a lot of people join from BC through ABCDE, which is the Drama Subject Association in BC as well. So lots of sharing going on, which is really positive. So that's sort of, that's what I wanted to highlight just sort of generally, but I'm gonna focus now on a couple of things from various committees. I was part of the website committee of code that ended earlier this year, but I helped our communications officer, Tessa Lofthouse, in facilitating the upgrade to the code website, which was huge. And I want to thank Tessa again for the incredible work that she put into that. It was a major upgrade to our site. And as with any upgrade, it created a lot of bugs and a lot of problems that had to be ironed out. And so I tried my best to support Tessa in ironing out all those bugs. And we're really proud of the resources and what's available on our website. And I also helped to participate in the equity review of the existing drama and dance secondary resources. I'm the chair of Code's Advocacy Committee, and that's probably been the major focus of my work this year. Obviously, it's been an incredibly important time for advocacy and a really challenging time as well. So in the fall of 2019, Code, OMEA and OAEA, which are the Visual Arts and Music Subject Associations, sent a joint letter to the Toronto District School Board regarding the new organization of the Arts Department. Originally it had been named Music and the Arts, and so we expressed collectively our desire for them to change that to the arts and to not separate music and the arts. And that happened, and we're really proud of that, and really proud that all the subject associations came together to advocate for that, which was really positive. I also wrote a letter to the deans, assistant deans, and independent deans of the faculties of education expressing Code's interest in attending their meetings so that we could raise some concerns we have about pre-service and AQ courses. Unfortunately, we haven't really received a response to this. It's been very hard to connect with deans of education. That's something that's been difficult for many years and continues to be a struggle, but we'll try to keep connecting and reaching out to the deans of the faculties of education. In March 2020, when schools closed, I, as well as Jane Deluzio, participated in a call with OMEA and OAEA to coordinate a letter to the Ministry of Education. Many of you know that after schools closed, the ministry launched a Learn at Home web portal for teachers. There was no arts content on that portal. And so our letter to the ministry was to highlight the fact that arts resources were missing and to offer to support putting arts resources on that portal. It did result in a call with the ministry, which was really positive. It was our first actual response from the Ministry of Education since the new government came in. We did put together a number of links and resources, but unfortunately they were not put on the website. There are some arts, there are some links to outside arts organizations on the website, but unfortunately they did not post the links that we suggested. I've also done some international outreach. So some people might be familiar with Te Rito Toi, which is a website created by Professor Peter O'Connor in New Zealand, which has just incredible resources to support students as they return to school after a crisis. I participated in Peter's webinar, and also we sent Te Rito Toi to a number of stakeholders in Ontario. We sent it to the Ministry of Education, People for Education, TDSB, and OSSTF. So we felt it was a really strong model of a resource that we could create here in Ontario to support students as they return to school. Also, in the spring of 2020, I helped to coordinate the writing of letters from Code to the joint, with the joint subject arts associations as part of the plan to reopen schools. These letters are saved to our website. You can go to see our advocacy materials, which are now posted on our website. We also, in addition to sending it to the minister, we also sent this joint letter to the Assistant Deputy Minister, as well as the heads of the Indigenous and Wellbeing Education units. We did receive a little bit, we received a thank you and a recognition that we sent it, but unfortunately it didn't result in any kind of meeting with the ministry. I also contacted Kathy Renfrew at OSSTF to just ask how unions were being consulted as part of the plan to reopen schools. And I brought up a number of concerns to her about how the plan to reopen schools would impact the arts specifically. Kathy did agree to include some of our requests in what they called their position paper to the ministry, which included a request for specific funding to create resources for embodied subjects such as dance, drama, music, visual arts, and physical education. So OSSTF did put that request forward, but to date, we have not received a response from the ministry about funding or support for resources for teachers as they return to school. And so we've moved on to create some of those resources ourselves. And lastly, I participated in a call with Jane DeLuzio and Chris Markham. Chris Markham is the head of OFIA, which is one of the health and phys ed subject associations, to talk about joint advocacy. I think one of the good things, if we could say good things, have come out of COVID is that the subject associations have come together a little bit more. And I credit Jane with that. She's been really focused on trying to spearhead joint and collective actions together. And so we had a really productive conversation with OFIA that then resulted in a productive conversation with OFIA, FNMI-EAO, the First Nations, Métis and Inuit Education Association, as well as OMIA and OAEA, to talk specifically about how embodied subjects are impacted by COVID in an age of social distancing. And so even though we haven't had a lot of time to collectively meet or create things together, we have all agreed that we face similar challenges and that we're stronger if we advocate together. And so I hope that continues forward in the time to come. And in terms of conference, I'm also one of the co-chairs along with Brooke Charlebois of what was the 2020 conference, now the 2021 conference. So that conference is planned. We have workshop presenters, but unfortunately because of COVID, we decided to postpone our in-person conference to the fall of 2021. We hope to have that conference in person. And the committee is taking a bit of a breather right now, and we'll reconvene in early 2021 to look at what the situation is and whether we can move forward with that conference as planned. So look for updates about the 2021 conference in the new year. And just in closing, wanted to say a few words because this is the end of my tenure as past president. I'll be continuing on as conference co-chair. I've been part of Code for 16 years. I've been a teacher for 18 years and I joined Code really early on in my career. So I've been able to see how it's grown and expanded to reach teachers across Ontario. And it's been and continues to be such a strong and passionate voice for advocacy, for arts advocacy, as well as internationally respected. That's one of the things I've realized in the last few years because I've had the privilege of traveling, is to understand how well respected Code is around the world. Our board is full of passionate and committed volunteers. If people don't know this already, most of the people on our board are full-time teachers. We all volunteer our time, we're not paid. And to see them continue to volunteer their time and their energy during a global pandemic and during probably the most challenging of circumstances, I think speaks to the commitment of Code and its board. So I want to thank our board past and present, our current executive for their incredible hard work. I'm really, really excited to see a new executive take Code forward, and I have a lot of faith that they'll continue Code's incredible legacy. Most importantly, I'd like to thank Jane Deluzio, who's been an amazing president. Many of you know that Jane's been a mentor to me in my career. She was my high school drama teacher and has been a mentor to me for a long time. I feel like now everyone on the board has experienced Jane's mentorship like I have throughout my career. It's been amazing to learn from her and to, in some cases, mentor her, which has been kind of like a full circle moment that's been really special. And Jane, I think during her tenure as president has had a one-on-one conversation with every single person in our board. And I think that that speaks to Jane's desire to connect with people and to make them feel really supported. So I want to thank her for her work over the last 2 years as our president, and congratulate her on an incredible tenure as president. So I think that's it for me. Happy to answer questions. And there's a little bit more detail in my written report, which is on the website.
Yeah, Kim, one question was just about, hold on. I was just answering it, about the organizations you mentioned. So all those are detailed in your report, right?
Yes, all the different subject associations and different organizations. There's a lot of acronyms. So if people have questions about the acronyms, I'm happy to clarify. But yeah, all of that is detailed in my report for sure.
Matt, are there any further chat questions or anybody wishing to ask him anything before we move on?
That is the only chat question at this time.
Thank you, Kim, and thank you for those words, unexpected and appreciated very much. So thank you. You are going to be greatly missed, but I'll do that at the very end. Okay, so I'm the next person on the agenda to report. Part of me wants to say what Kim said, because we worked often hand in hand, but of course we worked all together. The one thing about writing these reports and presenting separately is that pretty much anything any one of us did, we did with others on the board, and it was very collaborative. It's an incredibly step up, step in, interconnected board, and that's, I think, as it should be. My report that you can look at, I took the liberty of dividing it, the AGM year. We're supposed to report from July 1st, 2019 to June 30th, 2020 for this AGM. So I took the liberty of dividing it into the beginning and up to March, and when, in other words, before COVID and after COVID, because COVID changed everything for our working process, as it did for everybody, with its incredible impact on all of us in society and very huge impact on teachers and education and every member of our board and our membership. So the pre-COVID part that I'll just touch on highlights, because there's so many things that are just day to day. Of course, I chaired last year's AGM. I'm not going to go and read all of those or touch on them. If you're very interested, you can go to the report. I did divide it. So I'm going to look at the connecting code. I was asked by the dance liaison and the drama liaison. People were working with discounts, and I was making many of the connections during the last year. So I made sure that I was connected with Pulse and found out what was going on with Carmelina Martin, met with her before Theatre Ontario collapsed in the end and had to close down. I had met with Rayburn Ferguson and Brandon Moore, and we were going to increase our collaboration with Theatre Ontario. And so I want to mention them here and say how much we miss them. Code always worked hand in hand with both Theatre Ontario and now trying to do what we can with Dance Ontario. I see you here, Alan Fago. You're both a Code member and on the board of Dance Ontario. So these connections for Code are essential. I connect with Dance Collection Dance, made sure, and I'm passing these on now to our relatively new dance liaison, Bobby Dorka, and our relatively new drama liaison, Daniel Schneiderman, and we're working to separate and tease it all out. The Dance Current magazine, which is really essential because its work supports the kind of work we do in our curriculum. The OAA and OMEA, last year I reported that we had our first historical meeting of the three presidents, and we've continued to. We have chats on together, and we connect. We ask questions. We share information, and I know that. I'll be stepping down as president today, and I know that our new president will continue that relationship. It's critical that we are together and in each other's pockets. It was particularly important even with the TDSB initiative that Kim Snyder referred to, where we were all working to have OMEA and OAA step up and say, you know what, TDSB, you're not a music and arts department, you're an arts department. And so having their voice to support that vision of Code, that it should be collaborative with all the arts, has been essential, and they've been a delight to work with. The NTS Festival Ontario, there was things to sort out, and they are really happy to have Code mentioned on their website for NTS Ontario because they're a national organization. So we're mentioned on their website. We mentioned them on ours, and it was really important to connect with them and be official partners and have links. I got to do some other reach outs, such as with Claire. I see you there. It was such a pleasure to go into your class at York, your IS pre-service class. And I want to publicly acclaim, because I checked and everyone in your class was a Code member. So well done, Claire. All the pre-service people who out there, Brooke and Kim and Christine, and I'm probably forgetting some of you, and I apologize, but that's so important. I reached out to Ryerson University, and we are looking at ways for us to collaborate with their early childhood education if we can, which will bring us back together, Alan, if that moves forward. Everything's been on hold since COVID. But we also I've also I want to work with their dance department, although Bobby Dorka is now here. So that work, I'm sure she'll continue, because we are doing other political work that's actually part of this year, but related to decolonization and looking at dance in a very different lens that we need to do. So that kind of connectivity as president, to reach out and then to bring the team in to take over and lead. I represented Code at the David Booth tribute that OISE did, and they did OISE did the one, they connected with David's family, and the professional community at OISE set it up. Code, as the president of Code, I was part of a small group who were asked to try and bring to life some of David's poems, and so I did that, sometimes to my chagrin at being on a stage doing movement at this point in my life. I also asked folks to represent Code at a number of events because there's too many of them, and I want to thank Kim Aaron, who went to the Theatre Ontario meeting and represented us early on at an AGM before they were finished, also for doing work with the OCT grade 7 and 8. Very grateful, Kim. You were always willing to do that kind of thing. Lorraine Southerns, who stepped up with Dance Ontario's AGM, Kat Karpenchuk for the opening at Pinocchio, and a Million Arts SECO meetings that many of you went to, as Kim Snyder also mentioned. Thank you. We did, Jesse will talk about our U of T pre-service training day, but my job as president was to support people with leadership initiatives. And so I assisted Jesse, and I was there, and I led workshops at that, but Jesse was the leader on that initiative, and congratulations and thank you for that, Jesse. OTF, yes, constantly involved. Moving down to sometimes resource people like Digital Theatre Plus from England wanting to connect with us to find out our opinion about their resources. Prologue's fundraisers were in close connection with Prologue. We had an OTF retreat in February. Advocacy absolutely was a focus all year, and worked hand in hand with Kim, and as she pointed out, the her mentoring in advocacy has been invaluable to me. And I think some of my political experience with these governments has served to make that partnership in the advocacy work as rich as possible. We had an amazing conference that I supported that Sherry Lynn Byrne and Leslie Turcotte co-chaired, and that was our last in-person conference at Code Upon Avon a year ago, and that was we had a brief tribute to David. We're going to do our proper code tribute today after this later this afternoon. But that was an outstanding conference, and I saw people doing amazing workshops. I can't name them all, but I was personally at Tessa's Drama One and was her official thank you. And the whole experience was very positive. One initiative referred to last year, but there's more of an update, is that Code started 4 years ago being part of the SIPI process for safety in schools, because the Ministry of Education began with looking at phys ed safety and also science safety, and they decided they wanted to look at safety in the arts. So as vice president, I represented us on the SIPI committee with OAEA. OMEA didn't choose to be represented on that committee because they felt that they had only minor safety issues to deal with. And so that we represented the arts. However, what happened when that committee finished in this past time was that the ministry reached out to us, and I said this at the last, but there's a follow-up, the last AGM, that they said they had funding for us if we wanted to do a safety resource funded by the ministry, and they would like Code and OAEA to take the leadership on that. So I worked very closely with Bob Phillips from OAEA, a former president of OAEA, and we put together a package, our thoughts, and that happened last year in June. And then what happened since then was that we had more conference calls with the ministry. I won't go into every detail, but this ministry's approach and funding for a resource document work that they wanted from us was expanded to include things like, well, you're responsible for making sure everything fits the disability guidelines for the province, but we don't have those. You'll just go look those up and you'll do that. For things like you have to make sure you have French for everything, but there wasn't really sufficient funding to try and do that. So there were so many variables that we were not comfortable with. We were working with the French board, which is, of course, for the French schools, they have a different, their own curriculum, but we're liaised with them too now. And so together, all of us decided that we simply were not prepared to submit a proposal to the ministry to write this, and the funding is withdrawn because we passed that budget. And we hope we can. There are some wonderful people working inside of the ministry, those who are there all the time, and they don't change with the ebb and flow of the political side. And I hope we can, but at this point, all the associations supported that we just couldn't take that on. And that was finally in February of this year. Resources was something that I put a lot of time and love into to take forward the equity review instituted under Sarah Pappas when she was president of Code, had to be continued, and we had the reviewing is now completely finished. There's been you don't need every detail, but all of the resources have been now reviewed, and we determined which ones were no longer acceptable in terms of our current lens for equity, thinking and understanding, which is something that as we all know, evolves and changes as we all become more and more aware. So some resources were pulled down and some have been identified, and we've left them on the site to say there are some good things going on in here, but we're going to be rewriting it. So you might notice that when you go into the resources. This work we hope will continue. there's just a lot to do behind the scenes, and part of it was the web, as Kim referred to, the enormous bringing that website. I forget the proper term for moving when you bring it forward, but having the new website brought forward resulted in a lot of challenges with figuring out how things could be best accessed, so I tried to be involved with all of that. I worked with Kim Aaron on the budgets throughout, and with communications, Tessa and Kim, as much as I could, and actually know about Basecamp and learned more things than I ever thought I'd know. I tried my best to support Jolene in the membership. There was so much going on with membership. It's so exciting. We have retired teachers membership, free service teachers who can come in for free. We have hundreds of them now. And then the excitement of developing a school-wide membership for our elementary schools, not for secondary, but for elementary, because those teachers teach so many subjects, and having the school-wide membership for those teachers seemed to make sense. We had voted on that a year ago, and that was in last year's, but what happened was people started asking for them, and boards in particular said, can we, buy a school-wide membership for every elementary school? So that was exciting work that Jolene and Kim Aaron and Jesse and a number, Tessa, had to be involved with, each in their own role, to make it come alive and to make it happen. So that was greatly appreciated. And same with secondary specialists. Some school boards said, we're going to buy a membership for every specialist in dance and drama in our secondary schools, and paid for it. So that was very exciting. Moving to the retreat then, very quickly, Code has a retreat that is most often one day and not overnight. And every now and then we get together for something, and we retreat and we focus on something important. And so the last overnight gathering was with during Sarah Papoff as president, when we all went to the Six Nations and new credits of sorry, I'm losing, stay calm, too much talking. Nancy Rowe, an elder, and we went and we were all together, and we spent 3 days deeply thinking, rethinking, and learning. That was back under Sarah. Well, this year we decided to get together and focus on being a team and looking at our directions, but we would do it at the Sheraton where our conference would be, so that people on the conference committee could really take a good look at the rooms. We could understand about ordering, but we could also be together and spend time thinking about things. And it was a really successful retreat. People seemed energized, and we accomplished so much. And the regional coordinators in particular had time to do committee work, which and I know that's in the reports of the regional coordinators that don't get to report. So I wanted to mention that out loud, that the regional coordinators have really stepped up in so many ways and have become a unified team across the province, really looking to have a vision that is both a blend of unity and also focused on the individual needs of every region in the province. So they made a bunch of plans, and we all did. And whoever said that, human beings make plans and God laughs, I guess, if it's a religious metaphor, but that's what happened to us, because a week after we made a huge number of plans for Code and felt in harmony and together, a week later, everything happened and schools were closed for COVID, and our lives changed dramatically at every level. So the last part will be shorter because it's a shorter amount of time, but really it was all about responding to COVID, responding to resources. Kim already talked about the big step up to get the very first group of resources out, but we also, I stepped up and made, found links, and I was supported by particularly Michael Wilson, Christine Jackson, and others to find links to gather information for parents, because the ministry had parent information, but they weren't including us. and they weren't using us. So we were advocating on one hand to try to get up there, but making sure that parents who were starting out, while they couldn't put, nothing else was happening, could find things to do that fit with our pedagogy, because not everything does, not everything, you know, it's wonderful to connect and watch theater, and it's wonderful to do dance with TikTok, but getting up and all dancing with TikTok is an activity and not a pedagogy and not a curriculum. So finding a way to support and navigate that tension and that important belief in the subject area was just beyond hard. During that time, after the distance learning resources that Bobby and Jesse and Megan and Tracy under Kim's leadership did, I put up the parent stuff, and then we put up some other links. We were all working, and then the regional coordinators all stepped up and did videos, each one. So this was happening, and it's spinning along. We were still trying to make sure that we did appropriate links to our existing anti-racist education videos, because Black Lives Matters exploded onto the world stage, and everywhere people were understanding about systemic racism and confronting it somewhat, other people not. It's a very challenging and important time, and so we were able to highlight resources we already had and try and make good connections out there. In the end, the last thing that I did before the end of June was the recognition politically that for subjects to survive, I mean, we were doing all the advocacy work for embodied subjects that Kim talked about, but for dance and drama to survive, we had to stay in the spotlight somehow inside school boards and with the ministry. So we were pushing one way to the ministry. We were connecting with our personal MPPs wherever we could, providing information about the embodied subjects, pointing out some of the dangers for dance and drama during this time. And so I wrote, I realized that because OMEA, we had a full document going out about music in the time of COVID, supported by, they're well-supported group. I'm totally envious. I wish it was us because they have a national organization that provided research and data. It's paid people, and they can provide that information right across to every provincial music subject association. They're 100 years old, and we are approaching 50. So they've got years of experience. And OAEA put out another document. So in 48 hours, with support from everybody who could send me stuff, I put something together and got it out before the end of the official end of the school year, which was important because then it wasn't the emails of, well, from a superintendent, well, OMEA and OAA have sent us something, what about code? And so we did get something out. And then we did work over the summer, and there's much, much more, but this AGM is supposed to stop at the end of June. And I just am going to mention that this board stepped up and worked at an outrageous level in July, after school ended, to produce 18 COVID adapted resources. And we'll get to speak about it next year, but it's really too close to not mention it right now in my report, because that was a massive collaboration by everybody in code. And the only other thing is that tiny little good news, there's a whole bunch of places I represented code. You can go and read those, and the advocacy been mentioned, and that's about everything. I guess it's so hard to pin it all down without going on for hours. So I guess what I'd like to say as I'm finishing up, and this is my last report as president, that this has been such a privilege, that I have sometimes old boomer people like me say, oh gosh, what's the world coming to? Well, the world is coming to wonderful things because of all of you guys and younger people who get it. I guess they're woke, they're awake, they're alive, they're working as hard as anybody ever did. And right now, I defy any boomer to say they're working as hard as teachers are right now in the classrooms doing what they're doing. So it's been a privilege to lead this particular board of people, but it's been a real privilege to lead code. And the next, I can't, it's a lifelong thing. My family won't let me speak at important events.
I unmuted. Yay, Jane.
Yay.
Amazing.
I'd like us to move now to Rochelle, the Secretary of Code, who the first three of us are all stepping down into different roles. So Rochelle, over to you.
Okay, as secretary, most of the work was pretty standard with upkeeping the back end of our drive and our institutional memory on code. Personally speaking, through the year, I did do a workshop at the Code upon Avon conference called Star-Cursed, Exploring Otherness in Othello. And that was a great conference chaired by Sherry Ann and Leslie. And through, let's just see, what else do we have here? Created various documents to help support code, and including our new letterheads, branding, and design logos, and help selected and coordinate some of the things we needed to do for the retreat at Hamilton this past year. And that's about it. So just participate, as like Jane said, I know this is not part of our fiscal, but our board did do extreme hard work when it came to supporting teachers during this time of COVID and the pandemic. So I just want to say thank you to all the teachers here and abroad who have been giving their soul to the education and to kids. So I just want to have that officially on the record, that I know some of us feel a little depleted, but it's good to have this strong community of educators that, you know, will always have your back. And so that's kind of the end of my report. I wanted, everything else is written below, if you see the link in the chat. And I just also want to take this time to thank Jane for being an amazing president for the past 2 years and mentor to all of us. And yeah, so we love you, Jane. And thank you for everything that you've done. You've been just so supportive to all of us in a very personal way. So that's the end of my report.
Thank you, Rochelle. And I'm going to move right on to our treasurer, Kim Aaron Spratt, who has somehow tolerated my need to understand everything that I don't understand in charts and online. So thank you for your patience. And here we go with your report.
It's really hard to follow you at all, Jane. But I ditto everything that Rochelle has said. You're an amazing person to learn from and to work with. And thank you for unbelievable amounts of time and work that you've been putting in over the last couple of years, and especially this summer. I will be brief in terms of, until we get to the budget, but in terms of Treasury duties, just the two highlights I would like to make are the submission of the OSSTF grant application and the receipt of the grant money again for this year. It's been mentioned, but it's been really exciting to be a part of and shaping the protocols and the processes for the centralized payment of school-wide memberships. So just to clarify, the school-wide elementary memberships are now available as a single school-wide membership for all teachers in a school to use. But we actually had some school boards interested in buying one of those for all of their schools. So we decided that, especially during these times, we took on something that we had previously not decided not to because we didn't have a really clear way to administrate where we let the school board pay for all schools, and we did the administrating and signing up each school board on our end. So it is the same thing. We then had the school boards interested in buying for all of their secondary schools, which we still do not do. We do not do a secondary school wide, but we do an individual centrally paid for membership, in which case we enter each and every teacher, but the board pays for the teacher. So we'll be working through how that process works, but there is definitely an interest and a need by the boards and schools for this. And so it should be very exciting to see what happens with membership in regards to that moving forward, now that we have a clearer process and we can start to actually put that out there rather than just field requests, which is how this all came about. We sort of jumped in head first, just given all that was going on with COVID. So that's been exciting. And I think it has lots of potential for the future for membership and for Code's bottom line. In terms of other work, Jane's really mentioned a lot of it. It was a real honor and pleasure to be at the Arts Co meeting, at the Theatre Ontario meeting, to represent Code in the rewriting of the guidelines for the integrated arts. And I find myself involved with lots of integrated arts stuff, which is wonderful because music is also a huge passion of mine. And so I've been doing a lot of work with ETFO. Last spring, I joined the ETFO Arts Series team with Brooke Charlebois and Isetta, another past Code member, and 3 or 4 other members. And we promoted Code everywhere we went, which were quite a few locals in Ontario last spring. And that will be continuing in the form of webinars come next month. We've had a few already. And so we're definitely, a lot of teachers were unaware of Code and very excited to hear about it. And we often highlighted some of the lessons on the Code website and, just super positive, very, very positive responses. So it will be even more exciting as we continue to add resources to the website, which it looks very much like we may be able to do given the number of memberships that have been coming in as of late. And of course, this was this summer, but I have now begun teaching the AQ course for, various probably AQ courses for ETFO. And so again, promoting Code always there as well and everywhere. Turning to budget, I think I will do budget before I show the financials on my screen. And I will move relatively quickly, but if anyone wants to stop me or ask questions, let me know. Can everyone see the full budget, the whole boundary of boxes? Yes, good, thank you. Okay, so beginning with a carryover of $47,000 from previous bank accounts, which was the actual number. We slightly underestimated our membership fees. Often we estimate 20,000 here, but given the budget cuts and all that was going on last year, we decided to underestimate, which was clearly not necessary because we had a $10,000 essentially income from Halton Catholic, which was one of the school boards that bought a school-wide membership for each school. Just trying to be very clear about that because it is confusing. And then we still had our $20,000 in membership. We also got the OSSTF grant, which we never put in the budget just in case it doesn't come in, but it did. So that added to our income. And Jane, we've added a charitable donations button now to the website. And Jane was very kind to put it out as her desire for her birthday present on her Facebook page, which generated half of our expected donation income. So this is a new thing, and we will, hopefully that will become more and more noticed as time goes on. In the end, we came in highly above what our expected revenue was. So from $62,000 to $80,000, which is wonderful. We also were very cautious of spending. and Jane was really on top of that because we didn't know where things were going and we wanted to make sure we were in a good position. So even though we still did have our overnight retreat, you'll see that everything was relatively within budget. What was wonderful was that the Avon conference, rather than potentially costing us the sweatered $3,000, it brought in almost $5,000 of extra revenue because it was so well planned and because it was thanks to Stratford Festival. The planning just allowed for a fabulous, inexpensive day and lots of interest, and it was just wonderful. So that was a nice surprise. We did have the $5,000 deposit that was going to be made, but it got pushed to next year for the 2021 conference. We didn't need to use that this year either. So that was saved. And I think everything else is relatively straightforward. So I'll just scroll down and let you have a look here. In terms of organizational, we did not use our international presenting travel subsidy. We thought we might use that, but we didn't anyway. And we have not, I won't talk about this here. Promotion and advocacy and materials. We spent some of them, not all, because we did not end up printing the flyers because we paused due to COVID, thinking perhaps a paper flyer was not what we needed, but rather something online instead. So we're still figuring that piece out. In the resource revisions, we used only part of the equity committee, only part of. And as was the case last year, we really went high on our budget for website because there was so much updating and so many changes and upgrades that needed to happen. We still came in under budget, but that is where a huge chunk of Code's budget has been going for, I guess, the last 2 years and definitely again this year. Our membership fees were less than expected, sadly, because of the closing of Theatre Ontario. And we have begun a new regional initiative where each regional representative is given a small amount of money. It was $300 last year. Likely would have been spent in that last quarter had we not had to hunker down. So we saved all that money as well. And for the big number, so we were above budget by $50,000-ish. So that's a really wonderful thing for us to great position for Code to be in. We're in a very good position right now financially, which is wonderful. Yay, Jane, and yay, everybody. And I will just fairly quickly scroll through the financials for you to see. I'm not going to explain this because I'm not sure I could do it justice, but numbers for you to see, final numbers of what we currently hold in the bank. Okay, I'll pause for a moment. So as you see, Code is in a very good financial position at this time. And these were our expenditures. I don't know that there's too much to highlight here. The reason our taxes are higher is because last year's check is going into this year. And any small details, I can answer any questions you need. Okay, has everyone had a chance to look at that? I will pass the mic.
Thank you, Kim Aaron. Is there anything, Matt, that needs to be answered by Kim Aaron before we move on?
One of the questions, are there next steps and plans in place for priorities moving forward yet, or is that post-cover conversation?
Yes, so Jane, let me just pass to you. I'm happy to talk about that. I know that's generally, usually we just talk about this year's budget is what I was instructed.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
go ahead.
Do you want given the surplus, Sarah feels it's critical this year.
Yeah, so because if I was continuing for another year, I would spend a lot of money on resource development because that's what's needed, and we need to do something open and a call out, a proper paid. We have funding. Instead of the ministry being the one, Code should take its money, I think. And I know certainly whoever comes in is thinking similarly, and it's got to be worked out, and we can't predict at an AGM what we're going to do. The whole board has to be involved. It's a decision by everybody together. But I think philosophically, based on the last meeting that we had together after the purview of this AGM, but in June, when we were still part for this AGM, we all knew we had this surplus, and there was general consensus at that time that we need to focus on resource development. So I think it's the right place for Code to put its money, is resource development. Get more resources up there, get that website running, give teachers something wonderful to be able to access. So I think that's what you'll see, and I'll be around as past president, and I hope that's what we're doing.
Yes, so that is where our main chunk of budget. And also, I just want to also point out that we did put some money aside for more French translations of these as well, which is a big one. And again, we're continuing to focus on the website, because the website really is one of the most important parts of Code. Yes, Kim, in just 2 seconds, I'll pass you the mic. And the other thing too is we've upped the amount that each of our regional reps can have and use to promote things in their region. And that piece is still open for a little bit of flexibility. So I'd say those are the main areas. So the regional advocacy and promotion, the new resource creation, and French translation. There's still always, of course, the equity committee and the other committees, but those are our primary focuses for this year.
And Kim, thank you, because I know you can base that on the budget that you would be talking about in a year where we've put our money. Kim Snyder, you wanted to say something before we move on.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the comment about that there has been a lot of discussion about money going towards resource development because the resources are a huge driver of people to Code, and a reason why it's sort of it's what drives membership is access to the resources as well as the conference, but very much the resources on the site. So I think a focus on resources, on member resources, on developing more resources that are for members, because the bulk of this funding comes from membership money. And also, I think because we've initiated this, this resource revision, this equity revision over the last year or two, we've been able to see the holes in our resources on our website. We've been able to see what's missing. So there's been mentions of French, of revising those resources that we took down for equity reasons, and for updating, because the curriculum now is 11 years old. Our curriculum is 11 years old. And so a lot of our resources on that site were created in 2009, 2010. And so I think that that's a great focus, and that the incoming board and executive for sure will look at that as a goal. And also maintaining the website. It's costly to maintain that website, but given it houses hundreds of resources that teachers use every day, that's a really important thing that we have to ensure that we have the money to keep that website up to date and running so that people can access it.
Thank you, Kim. Kim, we always say Kim S and Kim ES because it gets confusing. So thank you, Kim S and Kim ES. You wanted to say something before we move on?
Just because it's been brought up, I just wanted to point out the fact that even if we do start a resource creation project, it may end up that so much of that budget will fall into next year just by the nature of the timing of putting the call out and choosing and then beginning and then ending the writing period. It's a long process, so it likely will not all get spent this year, what we hope to put towards it, but just a point.
Yeah, money gets collected and spun around. Thank you, everybody. We have now get to hear from our Vice President, Jesse Kennedy, and that's just because I have this thing for alphabetical order. So that's the order that we did by position. So Jesse, you're stuck at the end as Vice President, but you always have important and wonderful things to say. So go ahead, your turn for your report.
Thanks, Jane. I'm not going to talk about everything in my report. I just wanted to focus on two things. And the first one was that we've continued a lot of initiatives, as you've heard other people talk about, in building our relationships with the faculties of education, which is incredibly important. And we're really lucky to have friends at UOIT, at U of T, at York, at Brock. So thank you, all of you, and Jane has mentioned some of you, for forwarding code as a really important resource for those pre-service teachers. This year in particular, we've made friendships and grown relationships with the Trent Faculty of Education, as well as UOIT in Oshawa, and they have different satellite campuses as well. And as Jane mentioned, we took a team of code teachers to do a full day workshop at UOIT last fall. And these kinds of workshops obviously aren't happening in the same way anymore, but we're doing Zoom drop-ins to different classes. And what happens after we do this is a huge rush of pre-service memberships. And so we know that it's working for highlighting code as a valuable resource, and that drama and dance as pedagogy to integrate in classroom practice is something that teachers are very interested in. And though I know, as other people have said, it falls outside of our fiscal year, I did want to mention as well that that our creativity in the time of COVID document was incredibly important to faculties of education. And they were so grateful, teachers and administrators and students, to have that document and resource, to have something to work with as a guidepost. And Jane's leadership in getting that together so quickly, and what an excellent document it really is, Jane, was just such a tremendous thing. So thank you very much for that, because that was really important and really valued by everybody. The second thing I want to mention is our new brochure. So we had our first iteration of the brochure launched at Code Upon Avon last year. And we went away and took in some feedback and made some changes, and in content as well as form. And so we're happy to launch our 2020 brochure today. And I've put the link to the brochure in the chat area. And normally we would physically have copies of the brochure to give to you. We don't have that right now, but you do have a PDF of the brochure, and it is available on our website under the advocacy area, and can be searched in the resources part. So our brochure has a multi-pronged approach, and it highlights the benefits and byproducts of drama and dance pedagogy in the classroom. First off, so that's the first thing you see. And then we also wanted to have teacher and student voice and testimonials about the impact and effectiveness of drama and dance in education. So it does that as well. We also offered some quantitative data that touches on the arts in children's development, as well as the arts as they contribute to the provincial economy, the arts as effective strategy in reaching marginalized students and improving retention rates as well. And lastly, it profiles research to support the importance and efficacy of drama and dance to support mental health, that it's culturally responsive teaching, resiliency, lifelong learning, and equipping students with 21st century competencies. So we've tried to do a lot of things in one place, and be aware that we're sending this document to the uninitiated who may be very new to the whole idea of drama and dance. So that's all I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Are there any questions or about the brochure or about the pre-service work that Jesse's been working through different pre-service groups, and anything at all for Jesse before we move on?
There are no questions, only accolades and awesome comments.
I'm not reading the chats at all because I get confused with multiple windows, so I'll go read everything later, but I see little ones popping up from now, and I just see one from Daniel Schneiderman saying brochure looks amazing, and I have seen it and it does look quite amazing. Jesse, thank you so much for all of that work. So that ends the bulk of our agenda. We are going to turn the agenda now. Don't give up. There's 2 pieces left and they shouldn't be that long, and they'll be much more celebratory. But first we have the elections that we run by the past president according to our constitution. So the agenda goes back to Kim Snyder.
Hi, everyone. Okay, so in my role as past president, I'm the chair of the elections committee. Just to let you know that code, board, and executive positions run on a 2-year cycle every other year. So last year was an election year for our board positions, and this year is an election year for our executive positions. The nomination form for executive positions was posted to our website 30 days before the AGM, and the deadline to submit those nominations closed 12 hours before this AGM. There were nomination forms received for each of the positions on the executive, but there were not multiple nominations put forward. So we won't be having an election. Instead, we will be acclaiming people to the following positions. So what I'm going to do is read the positions and the name of the person coming into that role. I believe that someone in Cyberland will be spotlighting that person as I announce their name. So I'll take my time and go slowly. And then perhaps at the end, we can give some applause to the new incoming executive. So coming into the position of secretary is Tessa Lofthouse. And in the position of treasurer, Kim Erin Spratt will be continuing in her role as treasurer. Followed by our vice president, Jessie Kennedy, also continuing in her role as vice president. And then moving into the role of past president, Jane Deluzio. And our new incoming president is Matt Sheehan.
Yay!
And just before I continue to talk about management board positions, I want to pass it over to Matt for a brief second.
Spotlight myself for a second there. So I'm going to keep this very quick because we have other things to do this afternoon. But I wanted to take a moment and thank my predecessor for providing huge shoes to fill. As was mentioned today, and you know, having the position of past president is amazing because it allows for me to be able to access and have that mentor, the person who's been mentoring me for so long, by my side the entire time. And without you, I would not be able to do this. So I'm looking very forward to continuing our long conversations, sudden Google Meets and phone conversations. But I also have for you a thank you. Sam makes bottle of Baco Noir. We usually buy things for people when they're leaving the board, but this is for you, just for all the amazing things that you do. And when I come see you in November to chat, I will bring this and maybe we'll share it, or you can have it to yourself. It's up to you. Thanks so much.
One
Sharon.
of my favorites too. How did you know?
Well, I mean, it's fantastic. So how could it not be someone's favorite?
Thanks, Matt. So even though this is an election year for the executive, we do have a bit of movement in our board positions because we have some people shifting and changing, and we also have a few people stepping down from the board. So we also thought that we would take this occasion to welcome new people into board positions. These folks have been acclaimed to their positions because it is not an election year. So moving into a position as our communications officer is Malika Komazek. I'm not sure if Malika is here with us today, but we want to congratulate her. And then moving into position of East Regional Coordinator in the Eastern Region is Allison Carrier. Welcome, Allison.
Hi.
and we moving into membership because we have Jolynn is stepping down is Kaylee Skates from the Trillion Lakelands District School Board. Welcome, Kaylee. And then last but not least, our new Northeastern Regional Coordinator is Lynn Roberge. So welcome, Lynn. Lynn and her dog.
That dog is adorable.
That's awesome. So welcome to our new board members as well. Congratulations to our executive members. I'm going to pass it over to Jane now.
Who just muted because I was unmuted. So all I'm doing now is to say some big thank yous before we move on, because we have a 1 o'clock and a 2 o'clock Zoom to come, and we all have tasks. So the first thing I wanted to do was to really thank Jolynn, who's present here today, and Angela Lefebvre, who is not present here today. Both of them have to step down a year early for personal reasons, but they have been enormous contributors to the Management Board of Code. And we are very grateful for all of the things that both of you have done. And Code will thank you more appropriately. I will take care of that. But is Jolynn's here? Can we wave at her? Can you give her a quick spotlight, Matt?
I'm looking. I think she left.
Okay, and I don't believe Andrea is here. So so that's that one. And then I want to welcome the people who have stepped in for these positions, and also for the 2 vacated due to the change with the executive. We're thrilled to have you all aboard. Each of you brings so much, so many things. It's exciting. And then finally, I wish to thank both, I'm going to start with Rochelle. Rochelle, I think it's 8 years or 9 years, 8 or 9 years you've been working for Code, donating time in many different positions. So normally when people step down from the executive, we have a presentation. So let's start with a presentation, Matt, for Rochelle. If you could please put on the video.
Hold on.
We're working.
So, Rochelle,
Can you hear
it
that?
is my sad and happy pleasure to thank you for all of your years on the Code Board. You have done duty for years, and you've done many positions, and you've been an asset. You've given your heart and your soul. I did this to Kim too, so I'm not going to do this. You've given your heart and your soul to Code, and we are very, very grateful, and you will be greatly missed. So this is a small token. It's been sanitized and wiped. There is a card in there.
Nice.
And it's from everybody on Code to say to you, thank you. And if you want to say anything into the camera back to Code quickly, this is your moment.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you to Jane and to all my previous presidents, Kim Snyder, Brooke Charlebois, and Sarah Papoff, and all the whole team of Code that I've been with for 8 years now. And it's a sad parting, but I'll probably come back like a yo-yo.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you. And now, thank you. When I look at those videos, I don't know how I ever have the guts to let you see the COVID 20, 30, 40, whatever, but there we go. Having said that, it was a pleasure to see Rochelle. So now I'm going to turn to Kim Snyder, who has been 15 years on the board, and she's already mentioned I taught her in high school drama. She won the award for highest mark for OAC drama, of course, back in the day. And also, I hired her in her first job when she finished at the Faculty of Education. I hired her at Rosedale Heights School of the Arts. We had a last minute opening, and the principal tasked me with fix the drama department in this school, hire people. We have our first opening. So I reached out to Kim, eventually hired Stephen Way, who is also a former student of mine and worked on code for many years. But Kim came in, and then I worked as her vice principal. And so then Kim turned the favor around and invited me back into code, because I was involved with code in the 80s and 90s. And when I was vice president, I had to step down for family health reasons and never became president. And so Kim and Brooke and Sarah reached out when there was an opening and said, please come back. And I did. So Kim, now you've become the mentor, and you've been a leader, and we've been in each other's pockets for so many years. And that doesn't, one of the strengths is we tell each other exactly what we think, whether it's nice or not, because we just do that. It's better. So that's made it work, and it's been a total pleasure. Matt, the video.
Kim Snyder, it is my sadness and joy at the same time to do this, but we want to thank you on behalf of Code for everything that you have done. So much leadership, so much passion. I'll get teary just thinking about it. So thank you for all your work, and we're going to miss you on the executive, and we're grateful that you and Brooke will have conference work next year, and we'll still be in touch. So
Thank you so
it's all been sanitized.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Do you want to say anything to the team? They couldn't sign cards, but
Sure. It's been my pleasure to be part of the board, and still on the board for 15 years, I think. And yeah, it's been an amazing time, and I have so much admiration for the folks on the board who work so hard, and for you. I'm going to say more at the AGM, but so much, it's been such a pleasure to work with you and watch you be such an amazing president.
that's what I watched you being, and I think we got enough.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so Kim, I don't know if you have anything else you wanted to say before, but I do want to tell you and Rochelle that I will be sending you, as soon as this closes, links to Jamboards that we have set up for each of you. And that is in lieu of cards signed by everybody on the board. So I think you'll enjoy those, and we've kept it secret, and the links will go out at the end of this meeting. And it's full of love for both of you for all that you have done. And yeah, that's
That's such a teachery thing for you to do.
Brooke set them up. I don't have that technology, so Brooke set it up. And but I wanted something, and because we couldn't sign cards, so there you go. And if you or Kim have anything left to say, or anybody have anything left to say, because I think that this meeting's gone on long enough, and we have 2 more Zooms to go. And I'm going to, I guess it's over to you to call the meeting, Rochelle, and we'll see everyone at 1 o'clock if you're coming to the David Booth tribute. Such an amazing man. We miss him.
Okay, so it's 12:23 p.m. So I will call this meeting adjourned. Thanks
Yay.
everyone for coming.
Bye, guys.
Bye.